So having looked at standard costing in the previous chapter, we're going to stay with that theme of using standard costing. But what we're going to see in this chapter coming up is using the standards to perform budgetary control, right? So remember, control refers to that part of the process where we are checking that what we want to happen is actually happening, and taking action to make sure that we stay on track to achieve our goals. Okay, now essentially what the biggest part of this chapter is about really is variance analysis. Okay, that's the chunk of the work that we'll see in chapter 7. Okay, now what variance analysis is, if I can put it into a nutshell before getting into the detail within the chapter, but variance analysis is just coming up with the differences between what we hoped would happen in the budget using the standards and what's actually happening, what the actual results are. Okay, and once we know where the differences are, we can hopefully kind of carry on doing, what we're good at, and keep those, favorable variances occurring. But if we've got adverse variances, if things are going a little bit wrong, then we need to understand why and put that right. Okay, now let's have a look at the learning outcomes. Okay, so we've got learning outcome 1.1. Okay, where we are going to see these types of budgets. Okay, so more kind of terminology in relation to budgets. We'll also need to think about providing members of the management team with potential reasons for variances. Okay, so quite clearly, if actual results are not as expected, we need to understand why. Okay. And then with outcome 2.2, we've got the variance analysis. Okay, so here we're going to have quite a lot of calculation to do. Yeah, and here's that long list of variances that you will be expected to be able to calculate. Okay, how these variances tend to work, okay, is that for each item that you have in your profit statement, okay, you'll have a total variance. So you've got your total sales variance, total materials variance, total labor variance, and so on. Okay, including your total variable and fixed overhead variances. And then within each category of variance, we can analyze that total variance a little bit further to come up with more useful information for the management teams and the decision makers within our organization. Okay, so each of the variances will be caused by something. They'll have their own kind of list of possible reasons. Okay, so we'll kind of leave that until we get into the chapter to see that detail. Now let's have a look at the context of standard costing and variance analysis. The assessment context. Okay, so within the assessment, things that you will be expected to be able to do, you've got something called budget flexing, okay, which is an important part of the process, and it's important that you understand exactly what budget flexing is. Okay, put more detail on that later. You've got the calculation and the discussion of your variances. All right, so it's not all about numbers. You have to understand why variances are happening, what could possibly be leading to those variances, and also be able to discuss them in a narrative answer. The list of variances is quite long. There are quite a lot of variances, and when you sit the assessment, it may be that you have quite a range of variances to calculate, or you might just have a short number or a small number of variances to calculate. You have to go into the assessment though confident that you can calculate any of the variances that's included within the learning outcomes. Within the qualification context, okay, so looking beyond this particular subject, okay, the variance analysis is also dealt with in these papers here, management accounting techniques, and also cash and financial management. Okay, and it's a key concept in management accounting. Okay, it's part of the control function that is part of the job of the management accountant. And in the business context, okay, it is very, very important that organizations know why their performance is different to what is expected. Yeah, so even if the actual performance is better than expected, we still need to understand why it's better, yeah, so that we can continue doing what we're doing and get the best possible results for the organization. If the performance of the organization is worse than expected, then again, we need to understand why so that we can take corrective action and get the organization back on track, so that the longer term goals are achieved in a timely fashion. So let's take a glance at what we're about to start doing. So we it's all about controlling the organization. Budgetary control is the main feature in this chapter. Okay, so what we need to first of all understand is a little bit of terminology. Okay, so you've got a fixed budget. Okay, so fixed budget, we've mentioned that before. That is the budget that's set for the period. Okay, generally for a year, maybe broken down into monthly chunks. Okay, but that is the plan. Yeah, that is the budget. Okay, often referred to as the fixed budget. But alongside that, we've also got some flexible or flexed budgets. Okay, now the meaning of flexed budget is we're restating what we had in the fixed budget, but basing it now on actual output. Okay, so you say if we had been correct in terms of how many units of our product we were going to sell, what would the rest of the budget have looked like? Yeah, that's what flexing the budget is all about. Okay, now when you do your variance calculations, we are assuming that we have flexed the budget. What we are comparing is the actual outcome with a flexed budget. Okay, not the original one. And that's why that point is important. That distinction between the flexed budget and the fixed budget is important for that very reason, because it makes the variance calculations work. Okay, so your variances. You've got to think about the calculation of the variances, and also what the variances mean. Yeah, what significance the variances could possibly have for decision makers. All right, now the variance analysis, certainly the calculation bit, you'll find that we are always asking ourselves two questions and then comparing the answers to those two questions. What should it have cost us, and what did it cost us? Okay. All right, now the question will be worded slightly differently as we move from one variance to another, but that's essentially the pattern that we will be using. Okay. Now the variances that we calculate will be split into the variable cost variances and the fixed overhead variances. There's also going to be some sales variances in there as well. Okay, and as you can see, you've got the kind of total materials variance that can be split into materials price and usage. Okay, so just to give you a flavor of what you're going to see, so you could say, well, the total materials cost has been different this month to what we had in the budget. Okay, and then the managers might say, well, why is that? Okay, you might say, well, we're paying more, yeah, for the materials that we're buying in. That would be a price variance. Okay, the price is different. Alternatively, a reason for a materials variance might be the usage of that material. We might be using more or less of the material that we're buying in to make the finished goods that we are selling. Okay, that would be a materials usage variance. And you have a similar kind of pattern for the labor cost variances and the variable overhead variances. Okay, much more detail coming in the chapter itself. All right, fixed overhead variances. So the fixed overhead variance under marginal costing is there's only one fixed overhead variance, and that's expenditure. Okay, essentially, you're going to be asking yourself, what should we have spent on fixed overheads in the period, and what did we spend? Okay, and that's going to be the expenditure variance. With absorption costing, you are essentially comparing the overheads absorbed with the overheads incurred. Okay, so you know the under absorption costing, the fixed overhead variances are essentially looking at under or over absorption. Okay, and the reasons why we might over or under absorb, if you remember from chapter 1, that refers to, you know, either spending more or less than we thought we were going to, or producing more or less than what we thought we were going to. Okay.